You might believe that doing nothing keeps you safe, but standing perfectly still while the world moves is exactly how you rot. Existence is completely unforgiving. It is tragic by default and constantly tainted by the active malice and betrayal of others. When confronted with that kind of storm, the immediate human instinct is to shrink. You retreat, seek comfort, and avoid the friction of making a difficult choice. Indecision is a choice in itself. The heaviest things you carry aren't physical weights. They are the unmade decisions silently piling up on your conscience. Hiding from responsibility fails to shield you from the chaos. Instead, it strips you of your psychological armor, ensuring that when a tragedy arrives, you are completely exposed. The descent happens mechanically. By choosing to remain weak, you ensure that when adversity hits, you don't just suffer, you suffer stupidly, entirely unprepared. That self-induced misery begins to ferment. You realize you could have prevented it, and that realization curdles into a deep, pervasive bitterness toward the world. Bitterness left untreated twists into resentment. You eventually develop a vengeful grudge against the very structure of existence, wanting to tear down anything and anyone that functions well. This rejection of life finds its horrific expression in people who target schools, individuals whose unaddressed weakness mutated into a desire for mass destruction. Compare that to the realization articulated by thinkers like Fyodor Dostoevsky. He understood that a human possesses an almost indefinite capacity to bear heavy responsibilities. The math is straightforward. If you do not actively build personal strength, the default trajectory of human suffering leads straight to a monstrous outcome. We are often told that being harmless, naive, and weak makes you a good person. But if you are incapable of violence, your peacefulness has no merit. It is just weakness. True moral virtue requires the absolute capacity to be a dangerous, formidable force, paired with the intense discipline to keep that sword sheathed. This is embedded in our oldest stories. The heroine in Beauty and the Beast isn't interested in a harmless coward. She is drawn to the monster who can civilize himself and use that aggressive force to protect a family. Psychologists call this aggressive potential the shadow. It is the dark, bitter, vicious part of your psyche that you have to look at, acknowledge, and integrate into your character. True moral goodness depends on this mastery of dangerous potential. You must be capable of force to have any merit in your self-control. There is only one reliable intervention to stop your slide into resentment. You have to voluntarily pick up a heavy, meaningful burden. It scales sequentially. First, you take responsibility for yourself. If you get competent at that, you generate enough excess strength to shoulder the load for your family and eventually your community. Look at the infrastructure around you. It functions miraculously because of a massive network of working men breaking their backs in storms and sewers, voluntarily risking themselves to hold societal chaos at bay. Lifting that heavy weight isn't a punishment. The sheer physical and mental demand of carrying it generates the exact psychological meaning you need to withstand the tragedy of existence. Ancient texts like the Book of Job outline this perfectly. Even when stripped of his wealth, health, and family by unjust forces, Job refuses to become bitter, maintaining his faith despite catastrophic suffering. You will find the antidote to despair in heavy responsibilities rather than comfort or impulsive pleasure. Understanding you need to change is easy. The problem is the paralyzing shock that hits when you compare your current, flawed state to the ideal person you want to become. This chart illustrates that gap. It represents a chasm between where you are and your ideal self, a dragon of potential so massive that looking at it induces immediate panic and total inaction. You have to scale the dragon down. You reduce the gap, chopping it into incremental, microscopic steps until the required action is so small you will actually execute it. This requires radical humility. If your life is a complete disaster, your first step might be as embarrassingly small as opening a single drawer and organizing the items inside it. You have to sacrifice your ego and admit your own total insufficiency. That painful admission is the only way to take the first step out of hell. Just as avoidance compounds into decay, action compounds into exponential growth.
Each tiny limitation you conquer accelerates your momentum. Stringing together those small, self-imposed victories builds tangible competence, and actual competence is the only real foundation for genuine confidence. You start to realize there is a mechanism inside of you capable of continually snapping the limitations you thought you had. Personal responsibility represents the final act of self-transcendence. By choosing to bear your burden, you kill off the weak, resentful self and allow a capable, formidable individual to be born.